5 lights are on. And we go green in Seoul. Pretty good start from Evans. Mitch Evans in 3rd place, goes to the outside. Roland's getting swamped. Can Evans take the lead? Coming down into the right-hander. He's hanging it out on the outside, but Degrassi takes the lead. Evans is 2nd, Roland is 3rd. Everybody safely through the first couple of corners. Brilliant start from Degrassi, but Evans has got the lead. The Jaguar man is on an absolute mission, and Mitch Evans hits the front after 2 turns in the Seoul E-Prix. And here comes Roland attacking Lucas Degrassi, sends it up the inside into the stadium section, and he makes it through. So Roland back up into 2nd place. Must have been an error from Degrassi in there. So Evans leads, Roland 2nd, Degrassi 3rd, Dennis 4th. There at the top, 6 coming through in the barrier at the back, a few in the barrier at the back, 3 in the barrier at the back. Yellow flag out, and that might cause a little pause to the race. Dennis gets Degrassi. Dennis gets ahead of Lucas Degrassi and up into 3rd position, and it's a red flag. Red flag is out, and that's why. Buemi up on top, Nato in there, Turvey in there, Askew in there, Cassidy in there as well. Here we come, down into the right-hander. Someone going to the inside, Sete Camera sends it in, he goes through fine. And then a few just sort of slither wide. Oh, and then a couple of big hits at the back, sort of out of and then everyone piles in at the back. Very weird accident, that.
Yeah, I don't get that one, because it's not the first lap.
Yeah, you're right.
They've gone through there.
Here they come in again. There goes Evans. Evans goes for it quite early on, and we come down into the right-hander at turn 22, out across the line, and we go green once more in Seoul. And oh, and that's Mortara.
Yeah, Mortara just got absolutely hit by Jean-Eric Verne behind. And Verne goes for the move and just hit, because the back wheel's off the ground as well, so.
This is on board with Verne. Here's a look at Sims, and he...
Wow.
Buongiorno's Antonio. Van Dorn and Mortara.
Yeah. Mitch Evans got no control over what these guys do. It looks like Mortara's going to do a late lunge. Bit of defending from Van Dorn.
Mortara can't quite get the move. He knows he's got 5 seconds of attack mode left, and now he is out of it. Verne on Van Dorn.
Yeah, Van Dorn's got to be careful here.
So that's Van Dorn ahead of Verne, actually. So that's Van Dorn up into 5th place. He's just got ahead of Jean-Eric Verne because he was under pressure from Mortara.
Great job, mate. Let's go.
Oh, there we go. It's Pascal Verlin in the Porsche overtaking Edo Mortara in the Venturi.
And that's Mortara. What's happened to Eduardo Mortara here?
I heard him hit the wall in turn 2.
And his championship hopes look to be over, and I think they may well be now.
Right rear's down, right rear's down.
Yeah, right rear damage. He's got some advertising hoarding on it as well. But Mortara maybe has tapped the wall and picked up a puncture, and his race is run, and his championship is over.
I wonder if what's happened is...
slow puncture.
Exactly, I wonder if there was contact and cut the tyre.
Oh, and in the wall is that Sims. It's Sims. It's the Mahindra of Sims. Running in 9th position, and that would have been heart in the mouth for a moment for Dilbag Gill. Front left corner in the barriers, and
that's in the middle of the stadium.
What happens with Simsy here? Oh, there he goes. He's gone in sort of on the exit, hasn't he, of one of the right-handers, and then slid along the barrier.
It looks like it. There's marks. Let's see.
So halfway through the stadium, I think he's going to
lost the back again. Is that not what happened this morning? I think that's what happened in turn 2.
Crunch.
Okay, everybody, apologies. This is going to end under safety car. Please have the top 3 cars go to the podium, which is in the stadium.
The checkered flag is there. Evans wins the Seoul E-Prix.
Yes, yes,
yes.
3-0.
Yes! Come on!
Yes!
0.8 of a second ahead of Oliver Rowland. Lucas Degrassi finishing in 3rd. Dennis 4th. Van Dorn in 5th. Verne, Verline, Freitz, Da Costa and Cassidy the rest of the top 10. Stoffel Van Dorn picked up 10 points. He's on 195. sole. Eduardo Mortara wins.
Guys, good job.
And third hits the back of the Costa. It's a double win for Mitch Evans. Stoffel Van Dorn moves to the lead of the championship. This is the one. Stoffel Van Dorn is in a very strong place. Evans wins the Seoul E-Prix.
Come on! Yes.
The final session of Season 8 of the ABB FIA Formula World Championship, the final qualifying, the final Julius Baer pole position up for grabs, and these are the drivers that will be out in the first group of qualifying. Both Mercedes and both Rocket Venturis and both Envisions and both Mahindra as well. Rather appropriately, I suppose, given the weather earlier on this week, we've got a Noah's Ark grouping of drivers and teams heading out in this session, which is going to be very interesting. And as ever, the focus is going to be on Stoffel van Dorn in this session. He's the only one who's in title contention in this group, so all the focus will be on whether he can make it through. You see the Lotte Tower there over on the right hand side, the pit lane down here just next to Olympic Way, and there is Stoffel van Dorn, the man with the most appearances in the duels this year, 12. Andre Lotterer has the second most with 10, and that is where so much of Van Dorn's point scoring has come from. His speed in the duels in order to make it through into the top 8. A good starting position, good haul of points, and that's how he's built his championship, really. Norman Nasso getting ready to head out in the Jaguar, Lucas Degrassi departing too. But yeah, it's an interesting scenario with all 4 Mercedes EQ powertrains, Dario, in this group.
Yeah, absolutely right, Jack. And it looks like we're going to have a full dry qualifying session, so that'll take some of the unknowns out of it today. I think we're going to see who's got the pure pace to start up front this afternoon. And they're doing a lap in the first 6 minutes of qualifying, the first half. They're having to do a lap in the second. We'll see some track evolution, so I would expect everybody's the laps in the second 6 minutes to be the quicker. But it's going to be fractions of a second, isn't it?
And all of these group qualifying laps will be done at 220 kilowatts of power. So, and broadly speaking, we tend to see either an out lap, then a prep lap, then a fast lap, or an out lap, then a fast lap. It's usually the former. Van Dorn leaves the pit lane now with 11 minutes to go. These first laps in the first 6 minutes, less crucial, but it can, I presume, it almost feels a bit more crucial mentally more than anything else, because if you don't get a good lap in, the pressure's on for the second run.
Yeah, I think that the pressure is on, but it gets you in a rhythm almost, I think, with the track. Gets you in a rhythm with the car. You know, Mitch Evans, when he goes out in Group 2, they've changed the brakes, I think, on the Jaguar. There's all kinds of lockups this morning, so he's going to want to feel that out.
They changed them before practice and then have reverted because they didn't really love how it went in practice.
Yeah. I mean, the pace was okay, right? He was quickest, fourth quickest, sorry. The pace was okay, but he wasn't happy with that feel. And so when he really starts pushing in qualifying, that could have caught him out. So let's, and he knows he's completely comfortable with the brakes yesterday. What was happening is there was a temperature split left to right. These brake discs, these carbon brakes, work in a defined temperature area. Well, one, the right-hand side brake disc was fine. The left was not fine, and it was grabbing, and that was causing him to lock up into turn 22 every time he tried to push it. We've seen Lucas Degrassi and the Rocket Venturi coming through turned 11, 12 into 13 now.
Sete Camera just ahead of him in the Dragon. Cassidy has done a faster first sector than Turvey, Sete Camera, Nato and Degrassi, but Freins goes fractionally quicker still.
And listen to that Dragon Penske just hammering the ground through turn 18.
It looks so quick on that lock-off camera on the exit. I love it.
Is that a lock-off camera?
Yeah, I guess so. A wall cam, let's call it wall cam. Maybe that's a more appropriate terminology for it.
You see Degrassi bouncing across the bumps, the surface changes into turn 20, 21.
Down into the final corner at turn 22 for Lucas Degrassi.
We've definitely seen an upturn in form with Degrassi's qualifying of late in the Rocket Venturi.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been rapid in New York, London, and here. Nick Cassidy through the final corner in the Envision, and he is going to go quicker, I think, here. A 1 minute 22.351. Freins coming through. Here comes Eduardo Mortara out across the line, and Freins goes into second place. Mortara goes into second place now, ahead of Freins, so splits the two Envisions.
And again, you've got to be in the top 4 at the end of the session to get into the duels. I love that corner.
Van Dorn into 19, now down into turn 20. I love this shot where it's just like traffic on the right, and Van Dorn's like, nope.
It shows the speed.
Yeah, it really does.
When you've got nothing to really differentiate, to give you any kind of anything to show how quick they're going, and you see this traffic all parked. It's quite impressive.
Final corner for Van Dorn.
He's on a good lap, isn't he?
He is indeed. It's a 1 minute 22.165 for Van Dorn, which is almost 2 tenths quicker than Cassidy and 3 tenths quicker than his teammate Nick De Vries, who goes into 4th place. Oliver Rowland, 1.3 seconds off the pace there, so maybe a mistake, I think, in the, well,
middle sector.
Yeah, but then the final sector wasn't quick either, so maybe a couple of mistakes in there for Rowland.
Yeah, yesterday's pole sitter.
Yeah.
Oliver Rowland, a mighty performance. Through turn 18 yesterday in his semi-final.
Good job, mate. Main loss is loop 7, so that's the end of the lap, exit of turn 20. So currently your quickest, Cassidy.
That's Stephen Lane giving Van Dorn his feedback.
Good information there. Yeah, Rowland yesterday got on the rack stops in turn 18, both directions in the wet, managed to hold on to it, and I think he was as surprised as we were at the car. Kept going, basically.
Jerome D'Ambrosio and Delphine Biscay. Delphine actually pointed something out yesterday. Degrassi at the moment in 6th place, but Delphine said there was you didn't get a reconnaissance lap yesterday as well, because of the way that the track is and where the grid is. You only did the first half of the lap. Normally you do the full lap, go through the pits, and then you get to whereas this was only half the lap, and then you go around it. So that final corner at turn 20, where everybody ended up in the barriers, her point was it was basically the first time anyone had been there full stop.
Yeah, very good point. Norman Nato subbing for Sam Bird this weekend, the number 10 Jaguar.
Through the chicane and into the stadium. Van Dorn quickest at the moment. And Van Dorn's been quick in so many of the group qualifying segments. Maybe hasn't been able to deliver quite as much as he would have wanted in the duels over the course of the season, but the amount of times he's been through as the quickest driver in the group section is remarkable. As we go on board driver's eye with Degrassi, 2 tenths down at the moment on this lap.
This is through turn 21 now, onto the longest straight of the lap. Was that a little?
Yeah, it sounded like a little bump, didn't it?
Yeah, it looked like a little. They used the wall to arrest the slide. Heavy braking into 22 now. Up on the curb a little bit. Wall comes back to meet you. And Degrassi goes 5th. Gotta get it done.
And then goes in deep into turn 1. I think he kept it out the wall. Cassidy into the final corner and across the line. And he is remaining in 2nd place, half a second slower. Freins jumps up into 5th place. So Degrassi now down into 6th position. Eduardo Mortara, we're on board with here now, is in 2nd spot. Here's a replay of Cassidy coming out of the stadium. Oh, that's quite a chunky hit.
Yeah, that wasn't even close, and he's hit the suspension, not just the bodywork there. So wonder if that's damaged the suspension, bent the wishbones or the steering arms. If it has, that's the session over.
Less than 5 minutes to go. Pascal Wehrlein getting ready to head out in qualifying Group B in a few moments' time. But Van Dorn and De Vries and Roland are all back in the pits. Everybody else is still out there lapping. They don't appear to be on push laps at the moment, as Sacha Fenestraz is going. He's even got Giovinazzi's suit on. I hadn't realised that. He's filling in for Antonio Giovinazzi.
Well, I couldn't make him one overnight,
no,
Jack.
I know, but it's quite interesting. No damage to Nick Cassidy's car, by the way, after that wall hit. But here we go, bit of stretching for Fenestraz. We'll chat more about him in the second group qualifying. Sergio Sede-Camera at the moment 7th quickest as they return to the pits with 4 minutes to go.
And if you are Stoffel Van Dorn,
Which I'm not.
yeah, you know how to do it. You know how to do the job. You've just got to let your brain do what it does. Don't overcomplicate things. Don't overthink it, because when you start doing that, that's when you start making mistakes. And that's part of, I mean, any sport, isn't it? Any elite sport is so much about the mental aspect of it. And he's done a really good job of doing that all season long, just doing exactly what he needs.
Had a championship come down to the wire in Formula Renault Euro Cup, did Stoffel Van Dorn, because when he did GP2 he kind of destroyed the field, but I think he said 2012 or was it 13, it came down to the wire with Pierre Gasly, and he managed to win the championship. Oh, Daniel Kvyat, sorry, it was the final race weekend in Barcelona, came down to the wire, and Van Dorn beat Kvyat by 10 points. Sergio Sede-Camera's had his first lap times cancelled, lap times 1 and 2 for overpower. Does that affect him for not doing a lap time in the first half of the session? No, because he's got 4 laps on the board, so I presume his third lap time would still count, but we'll wait and see. Tyre changes going on at Envision for Robin Freitz, who apparently did a great overtake on De Costa yesterday, he was telling me, for, I don't know, 10th or 11th position or something, and he said it was a great overtake. And I said, well, we didn't see it. And he said, oh, it was great. And I said, well, fight for the places higher up, and then we'll put it on telly.
Harsh.
True, though, isn't it?
Yeah, this man was fighting for the places further up yesterday. Oliver Rowland in the Mahindra did a great job, didn't he? Finished second, their best finish of the season as a team.
First podium of the season for Mahindra.
Yeah, but all eyes rightly on the championship battle.
So Van Dorn, he's got a nice buffer here, you know, already going out in this with 0.3 of a second back to Robin Freitz. It would take a big jump from a lot of people for Van Dorn to slip out of qualifying Group A here. Yeah,
because Robin Freitz, Lucas Degrassi, Oliver Rowland, they're not known for the qualifying prowess.
It's very true. It's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Yeah, you know as well as I do. When track evolution thrown in as well, because obviously it rained overnight, and the rubber.
Did it?
Putting rubber. Well, it rained in the second part of the race, shall we say, in the afternoon.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
And so the track is rubber is going down all the time, and the tyres adhere better to rubber, goes faster. So yeah, I'll be very surprised if the qualifying order remains the same at the end of the session as it is right now.
Van Dorn 3,000ths ahead of Eduardo Mortara, Cassidy third, De Vries fourth. Freitz missing out at the moment with Degrassi, Sede-Camera, Nato, Turvey, Sims and Rowland. And actually Degrassi, as we mentioned, is on such a good form. He would have made it through to the duels in the last 5 races, which would be the best qualifying sort of duel performance of anyone over the last 5 races. Now he didn't, because in 2 of those races his lap time got cancelled for sort of technical infringements basically, but he's had the pace to get through every time.
Administrative more than
administrative, that's the word.
Yeah, it wasn't like he had extra power
no.
than everybody else, but he's simply warming up the tyres, getting ready to go. Sede-Camera leading the charge in the Dragon Penske. He will be definitely worth the price of admission here, because he flirts with the edge, maybe more than anybody in the field.
Here comes the Mercedes EQ of Stoffel Van Dorn, the championship leader. If he takes pole position today, he puts himself in a very strong spot to win the championship. If he takes pole, he just needs to finish in the top 8 to win the title. Into the chicane.
And if he takes pole as well, it takes away Mitch Evans' ability to finish second with pole position and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so it's very important laps for him. And Mitch Evans looking good through the stadium section, keeping the momentum up, just playing with the throttle, not touching the brakes. Quickest of anybody, 2/10 up on the previous best through that first sector.
Yeah, that's a really big first sector. It's quicker than De Vries, it's quicker than Degrassi, it's quicker than Sede-Camera, it's quicker than Turvey.
And you hear the tyres slide as he goes onto this surface of the city streets, a bit less grip there.
The closest in the first sector is Robin Freitz. He's the closest driver to Stoffel Vandoorne's first sector split.
Lovely through turn 19 as well for Stoffel Vandoorne. This is a really, really nice lap for him, and this will put pressure on Mitch Evans.
Down towards the final corner at turn 22. His middle sector's a little slower than Sete Camera, but Sete Camera now goes to the top, a 121.989. Vandoorne should go quicker than that. Mortara's done a very good middle sector. Vandoorne does go quicker, so he goes to the top of the times. Takes the checkered flag. There goes De Vries. He goes into third spot. Then it is the Degrassi car. He goes into second place. The Neo comes through of Oliver Turvey and goes into seventh.
Clean tyres, stand by.
Cassidy goes sixth. Mortara goes quicker than Vandoorne, so Sete Camera's on the bubble. Roland down in seventh. Freitz goes up into third, so Sete Camera is pushed out. And that is the last of the runners. So Sims returned to the pit lane. So Mercedes make it through with Stoffel Vandoorne into the duels. De Vries is out. Both Rocket Venturis are through as well.
And that's big news for the Teams Championship, because Rocket Venturi challenging Mercedes. Both cars starting closer to the front, getting into the duels. No wonder they're smiling.
The trophy from yesterday on the back of the garage there from Lucas Degrassi's third place finish, and they'll be looking for a similar podium position today. They said that and Eduardo Mortara quicker than Vandoorne by 0.04 of a second.
And you can hear him cleaning off the tyres there, using more lock than normal just to make sure the tyres are clean if he has to use them during the groups, the dual stages of qualifying.
So Mortara returning to the pit lane.
Didn't have a great race yesterday, made some interesting choices. Again, easy to say from the comms booth. Made some interesting choices. I think ultimately got a puncture because of that. In contact with Jean-Eric Vernon. But making up for it this morning.
So, qualifying group A is done. Mortara, Vandoorne, Freitz, Degrassi at the top four. Sete Camera in fifth position. De Vries in sixth. Cassidy, seventh row of the grid. Eighth row of the grid for Nato, Roland, Turvey and Sims, the rest of the runners. So qualifying Group B will be getting underway in a few moments' time, and who will be joining? Well, will Evans be joining? That's the big question, isn't it? And he was reasonable pace-wise this morning, strong in the wet yesterday to start third on the grid. We'll see what Evans can do in the Jaguar. You see them just, the cars at the bottom heading into the FIA technical area to get weighed and get checked and then head back down to the garages. And it is a good start for Stoffel Vandoorne, but we'll see what happens with Mitch Evans in a moment. Let's go down to Nicky Shields. So Ian James, the team principal of Mercedes EQ, after a strong performance from Stoffel Vandoorne. De Vries not quite making it through just yet, but it was still a strong performance from the Mercedes EQ squad, and they are in that championship fight as well, aren't they, with Rocket Venturi, as Dario mentioned a few moments ago. And we are about to get going with qualifying Group B. And Mitch Evans will be out in that session with Jean-Eric Verne, Antonio Felix da Costa, Jake Dennis, Verline, Lotterer, Buemi, Askew, Gunter, Tictum and Fenestraz. Mitch Evans getting ready to head out onto the circuit. And
look at his eyes, that 1,000-yard stare. He's probably just thinking about his lap. Some drivers close their eyes when they're doing that, just sort of play the lap in their mind, what they felt this morning in last practice.
Did you?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I can still play laps from circuits I drove 20 years ago in my head. I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, but yeah.
What did you have for dinner? Oh, you had a pizza?
I had pizza, yeah.
And a pepperoni pizza?
I literally...
Body's a temple, I thought.
I can play those laps, every bump.
Really?
It's bizarre. It's probably, yeah, one of the many useless gifts I have. I don't have many good ones.
How often do you do it? Yeah. If you're like bored on a plane, do you go, oh, let me look at Surfer's Paradise again?
Occasionally.
Really?
If something reminds me of it, yeah. Something on social media, somebody says, oh yeah, 25 years ago you did this. I'm, oh. So they
have a little, wow, yeah. That's amazing.
Not particularly helpful to anything in life.
No, but it's, well, no, I would suggest race car driving.
Well, back in the day it was, yeah. But the fact to be able to do it 20-odd years later, yeah, odd.
That's amazing. Yeah. Let's focus on the future of motorsport,
Let's
the ABB FIA Formula World Championship, and that is Roger Griffiths, the team principal at Andretti, and Oliver Askew is the first driver across the line. We'll see whether they're doing push laps or prep laps. Looks fairly pushy for Askew, and similarly so, I think, from Lotterer as he comes down towards turn 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's cracking on.
Yeah, Andre Lotterer, both Askew and Lotterer taken out in that accident. The first lap yesterday afternoon, turn 20. Of this stadium section as well. He's just trying to find the limit, trying to just run as much speed as possible through the Lotterer. Decent first sector.
28.2 for Andre Lotterer. He's under investigation for a pit lane procedure infringement. Andre Lotterer.
Sounds ominous.
Yeah, quite a lot of technical issues or administrative issues for Porsche over the course of the season and over the last few years, to be perfectly honest, as Lotterer now comes down into the right-hander of 19.
Interesting, he was feathering the throttle through 18. Edo Mortara absolutely pinned through there, didn't even think about lifting.
Old Mr. Dennis is 3/10 quicker than Lotterer in the first sector. We're on board with Lotterer now coming back down into turn 22. Buemi's middle sector is quicker than Lotterer's also. So this isn't actually a great lap for Lotterer.
No, old Mr. Dennis in the Avalanche Andretti car has really found a rich seam of form recently. His teammate Askew goes quickest.
Lotterer slots into second place. Here comes Sebastian Buemi out across the line. And is he going to go quicker than the pair of them? He does, a 22.299. The tyres chirping as he comes into the right-hander. We're on board now with Jake Dennis, who is 4/10 up on Buemi after the middle sector.
Much like Mortara, he uses absolutely every inch of the road. Mortara hit the wall at least twice on his fast lap in group qualifying. Dennis, P1 by half a second, nearly 6/10.
Wow, that's a quick lap from Jake Dennis. Here's Pascal Wehrlein, who had a strong race yesterday. But that 21.7 for Jake Dennis pretty much matches, is quicker than Eduardo Mortara's time in that first qualifying group. He hit the wall at turn 4 as well.
Absolutely, and he's going up to P2. He's only 4/10 away. Jean-Eric Verne, double Formula E World Champion.
Was in contention coming into this weekend, but hasn't had a rich run of form. He had scored points in every race so far this season, and then didn't score points for 4 in a row. Here comes Da Costa, his DS Techeetah teammate. And Da Costa goes into 4th place, so slightly behind Verne. Everybody is 4/10 away from Jake Dennis. Evans is
no, slow,
yeah. But I think he's on a prep lap. I think Evans, because his first sector was about 2 seconds off.
Right, let's watch on board Mitch Evans. This is important. See how the car's handling. Looks good through there so far. Watch how it brakes. They changed the brakes as we talked about. Going back to yesterday's brakes, they weren't happy with the new set of brakes in practice this morning. Good so far. Watch the surface change as he goes into the stadium now. So close to the apex wall in turn 7.
First sector split for Evans. He's a 10th down on Dennis, so not too bad.
Watch the corner tighten up as he comes into turn 13. Got to be flat through there. Didn't even think about lifting through 15. This is where it starts to get wide again out of the surface. Gets more bumpy, loses a bit of grip. Go for the bumps through 17, 18 should be flat. Yeah. Coming up to his next split now. He's
half a second
off, yeah.
Half a second away from Jake Dennis.
Again, he's just got to be in the top 4, but that's easier said than done.
And it didn't look particularly offensive.
No, it looked okay. That shows how good it was, Jake Dennis. But remember, Fairline's 4/10 behind in P2.
Yeah, but this might not even be top 5 for Evans. It isn't. It's 6th. 6/10 away from Jake Dennis.
And look, 5 minutes and 50 seconds to go. You can't go back to the drawing board. Going to make some quick changes, tyre pressures, maybe some changes to the powertrain settings, and the driver's going to make some changes too.
Tough lap that for Mitch Evans. 5.5 minutes to go. He's going to be the Dennis, Verline, Verne and DaCosta are all back in the pits. The other drivers out on circuit at the moment as Tipton comes down in the Nissan into turn 22. Neo, sorry, yeah. But he's up behind the Nissan of Max Günther, so
I know what you meant.
Honestly, I never know what's going to come out of my mouth. And I don't know if it, and I don't listen to what I say, so I don't know if it actually has any relevance to what I said in my brain. Evans struggling with the rear tyres, he was saying, and we did see him slide a couple of times.
Yeah, we did. So one of the tyre pressure changes changed the set of tyres themselves. The question is, do they can change the powertrain settings, as I say, to give the car some more braking, some more rear traction on the corner entry or corner exit when he goes back to the throttle.
So Evans returning to the pit lane now. Through the little right, and then the tight right-hander, and down to the Jaguar garage, which is towards the other end of the pit lane. Baseball stadium on the left-hand side. Evans ain't looking at that though. He's focused on getting into the duels, because at the moment he is out in 6th position. Both the Cheetahs in there, Verline and Dennis, the 4 men that would advance at the moment. Sasha Fenestraz, to cover off that story, is replacing Antonio Giovinazzi for this race, because Giovinazzi struggling with tendinitis. So Fenestraz has come in, and he is a young French racing driver, a 23-year-old who is Jaguar's reserve driver, actually, and Jaguar have released him to race for Dragon this weekend. He was the first driver to drive Jaguar's Gen 3 car, Fenestraz, but he hasn't driven the Gen 2 car since the rookie test in Marrakesh. But he's been on the sim a bit this year.
Because I hear he's going somewhere else for for the new Gen 3 car with another team, so he's got information from inside Jaguar. Stephen Lane, Stoffel Van Dorn, Stephen Lane's engineer, and you can see the intensity in the stare, just talking to his driver, getting every bit of detail he can, trying to improve things for the duels coming up.
So big pressure here on Evans. He's got to get into these duels if he wants to keep the championship alive, because he's basically got to finish 1st or 2nd, whatever happens. He's got to finish 1st or 2nd, and if he's not into the duels, it's going to be tough.
You see the screens on the wall in the Jaguar garage, that's what he's looking at. We're looking at the timing screens, seeing the split times where he's losing time. You see Stoffel Van Dorn on the inset there, just whatever happens, whatever Mitch Evans does, he can't control it, so he's just working on his car for the duels now.
Fairly matey, those two, Evans and Van Dorn. Were on the podium 10 times together in GP2 over the course of 2 seasons. Of course, neither could stop Jolyon Palmer in 2014, but in 2015, Stoffel Van Dorn won the title at a canter, really. Evans won a few races towards the end of that year as well, so they get along very well. And even I did an interview with them for yesterday's show, And just while we were getting ready, and I was chatting with the cameraman or something, I came back and they were, fully looking at each other's phones. I think they were buying something. I don't know what was going on, but they were
hopefully a car.
I don't know, but they were fully, involved in what each other was doing. They get along very well.
You can have championship fights. Scott Dixon, on a couple of occasions, one of my best friends, and we became good friends through actually fighting for the championship together. But then there's other situations where with drivers how do I put it politely, you don't get on with quite so well.
Yeah. Is it nicer to beat the drivers you don't get on well with? Or it doesn't make any difference?
I think, no, it doesn't really make any difference. The one time I think it felt bad was when I won the 2012 500 and Scott was second. I actually felt for a fraction of a second afterwards.
Really?
I felt for my friend, but then after that I recovered from that thought. Right, let's see what Mitch Evans has got here.
He has to get into the top four to have a realistic opportunity of winning the championship today. Here he is, coming down into turn 22 in the number 9 Jaguar. Through the right-hander, gets on the power. Van Dorn focused on his debrief, but we'll have a little glance up and watch the tally at points.
God, this is maybe the most important lap of the season. Yeah, he used a lot of curb, but did that stop him get back to the throttle? He missed the apex in 3. Bit messy so far.
Didn't look a lovely first few corners for Mitch Evans, but he comes into the chicane now.
This is scrappy. He's had a couple of goes at turning into turn 4 as well. It depends how much speed he's managed to float. Let's see, first sector coming up.
Let's see how far Evans is away from Jake Dennis in the first sector. Comes through it. Oh, he's almost 2 tenths down.
And he's hit the
in
wall.
The first sector, maybe tapping the wall through the stadium section, really wrestling with it. Here, Mitch Evans. Now coming out into turn 16. Gets on the power. Everybody else is improving in the first sector as well. Evans is the slowest of anyone in Sector 1 apart from Fenestraz. Evans is the slowest of anyone in Sector 1 apart from Fenestraz. Middle sector, he's only 3.5 tenths away, so that's not too bad through the middle sector. A mega final sector, and he might be able to squeeze through here, Evans.
But all those guys going quicker, the Jack.
He's still the slowest driver out there. Into the right-hander. He could get shuffled right back down the order. Evans comes across the line. Is it enough for the Jules? It's second. A good final sector, but everybody else is on a lap. Dennis comes through, takes the checker flag. He's already quickest. Who's next across the line? It's Askew, gets ahead of Evans. Tictum gets ahead of Evans. Buemi doesn't. The DS to Cheetah's next. Da Costa does. Evans is out. Evans isn't through to the Jules. Gunter gets it as well. Lotter into 9th place. Evans will start 13th or 14th on the grid in a race he has to win in order to stop Stoffel Van Dorn winning the championship. And is that Jaguar's title hopes gone for the Kiwi? And 10 out of 10 for Dan Tickton. Into the duels for the first time for the Neo team all season. Here's a look at Evans.
Simon hitting the wall, just watch on the exit. Oh, and I wonder, the way he hit that probably knocked the toe out of it because he hit it instead of an angle. It wasn't a flat hit. And that would knock the toe out of the car, and then it's going to handle like a shopping cart after that.
We're just not good enough in these conditions, is what Evans said on the radio. And some swear words.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the car in a straight line, it looks like. Yeah.
Phil Charles was the man with his back to us. Christina Manias, the performance engineer of Evans' car. Nearest to us here is Josep Roca, his race engineer.
It's not over. The championship is not over. It's just a lot more difficult now for Mitch Evans.
Returning to the pit lane. And after the win yesterday, which was a really remarkable drive, but nothing today. Van Dorn getting ready to head out in the duels in a few moments' time. Evans will be on the 7th row of the grid.
That's right in that midfield scrum that just, in those first corners, those first part of the lap, anything can happen. It's so difficult to get through unscathed, just that first half lap when you qualify in that position.
The lowest place we've had a race win from this season was 9th on the grid for Mitch Evans in Rome. I think the record for the win from the furthest back on the grid is Lucas Degrassi, who went from 15th in Mexico City 2017, so it would need to be a almost record equaling performance, and that came through pit stop strategy. It's tough for Evans, but we've got the rain coming later potentially.
It's not over.
No,
absolutely not.
It'll feel it for Evans.
No, I mean,
no. You think Evans is walking up here to get Wade, going, yeah, can still win this right now?
Nothing to lose. Yeah, you've got to have that mindset, but the rain actually looks like it's moving further away. If yeah, I mean, weather dependent. Obviously, if it does rain, it really opens things up even more.
So we are about to get going with the qualifying duels, but this is how Group B ended up. Dennis Da Costa, Vern and Dan Ticktum making it through. Gunther, Askew, Evans, Verline, Lotterer, Bohemian, Fenestras eliminated. So we will be getting underway with the duels in a couple of moments' time, but first of all, let's head down to the pit lane, check in with Nicky Shields. We're just looking at some of the onboard there from Evans, and that was him hitting the wall, and from then on the steering was a little bit left hand down and bent as he came out of the stadium section and then through 15 and down the back straight. There's another look at it again, just whacking it with the left rear, but I mean the lap time had already sort of gone at that point, Dario?
Yeah, he didn't have the grip, did he, through turn 1 and 2? He jumped, it was a bit clumsy through 1, but then turns 2 and 3, he just didn't have the grip to get the car into the apex. Had a couple of bites at turn 4, but at that point, as a driver, you know, the grip's not there, the grip that you need, and it changes your rhythm a bit as well. And, yeah, then he hits the wall, and it's just all, yeah, it's gone, by that point, it's all gone wrong.
Time for the duels. First up, Dan Ticktum against Eduardo Mortara, the Neo versus the Rocket Venturi. Then it'll be Jean-Eric Verne versus Stoffel Van Dorn. Robin Freitz against Antonio Felix da Costa. And Lucas Degrassi, for the third race in a row, Lucas Degrassi versus Jake Dennis. It was the battle for pole in London. Then it was the semi-final yesterday, I think, was Degrassi versus Dennis. And then it's a quarter-final today, so they're getting further and further back down the ladder, those two meeting, as Evans makes his way back down towards the garage. So the first duel, the first quarter-final, about to get underway here in Seoul. Lovely sunny day so far, plenty of clouds around, plenty of weather around as well. But but we're about to have the first duel. Dan Ticktum making his first duel appearance up against Eduardo Mortara for the Rocket Venturi team.
Hopefully I'll be making a duel at some point this season, but I think it's a really great spectacle for the fans and a great chance for us drivers to go head-to-head.
Qualifications are not different than the races. We have to handle the pressures in the best way we can.
Well, Dan Ticktum saying hopefully I'll make it at some point this season. He's chosen the last possible moment to make it, and that is the first Neo through to the duels this season. So that means that it's only Turvey. Oh, is it only Turvey? It's only Oliver Turvey that hasn't been in the duels this season. Let's see what Ticktum can do. I mean, this is a underdog story for Ticktum versus Mortara.
Yeah,
this is FA Cup third round stuff.
I was thinking David and Goliath, but yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. A phenomenal job. He's already won. Dan Ticktum's already won.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, he's done a phenomenal job to get this far. Mortara, again, championship implications for the Venturi team with the team's championship. He's got to make amends for yesterday, I would say.
Was 13th on the grid yesterday, Dan Ticktum, so he's had a bit of pace here this weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the British driver can do. And he's coming into turn 22 now to start his flying lap down in towards the first corner.
Now he's going to arrive at that first corner a lot quicker because he's got 30% more power in the dual stages of qualifying than they had in group. So yeah, all the way it puts the power down, the way the balance of the car is all completely different in these dual stages. Looking good so far.
Here comes Mortara starting his lap. Keep an eye on the tower on the left-hand side. This is a big race for the team's championship for Eduardo Mortara. And he's 400ths quicker than Ticktum through the first couple of corners. Ticktum now into the stadium.
They're looking good through the stadium. You can hear the tyres working.
They're very close here, only 100th between them. Ticktum actually closing the gap a little bit. We'll get the first sector split for Mortara in a moment, and he's now managed to extend his gap to just over 1/10 of a second, coming into turn 13. Ticktum and the fast part of the track, down into 19.
I stood watching looking at the bumps back on Friday with Dan Ticktum. Let's see how brave he's going to be. He's got 3/10 to make up into this next turn 20-21 section. Looking maybe over to the entry a wee bit.
Down in towards the final corner then. 3/10 the gap at the moment. Oh, lock up! Still got it in just about. Ticktum actually closing the gap again to Eduardo Mortara. Comes across the line. 21.6 is the benchmark time. Mortara has been quick through 19 and 20. Now down into the final corner. He's neat and tidy. The gap is almost half a second. And Eduardo Mortara advances through to the semi-finals. So Ticktum doing a 21.611, and Mortara is into the semi-finals yet again. 2 pole positions so far this season, 7 quarter-final appearances, 6 semi-final appearances, and 5 final appearances for Mortara. In fact, yesterday was the first time he'd lost a quarter-final. But very happy team at Neo, I would imagine, guaranteeing themselves a place in the top 8. Jean-Eric Verne versus Stoffel Vandoorne. DS Techeetah versus Mercedes EQ. They've faced off before, and it's 1-1 in their personal own head-to-head competition. And I don't think it was a final either of those times. No, it wasn't. So here comes Jean-Eric Verne. And he will be the first driver on the circuit, and the winner of this will go through to face Eduardo Mortara. So that would be quite a big semi-final with Vandoorne versus Mortara. But of course Vandoorne now, with Evans starting a long way down the order, a reasonable points finish would be enough for... he's going straight on, Verne. That's done.
Yeah.
Duel's over. Big mistake. Down at the first corner, Thomas Chevauchet watching, and I'm sure that Stoffel Vandoorne will be told that Verne made that error. We go on board with Vandoorne as he starts his lap.
Look, Vandoorne made almost the same mistake. It looks very low grip in turn 1 at the moment.
But the gap is a second between Vandoorne and Verne.
Yeah, but you don't want to knock yourself out of the rhythm too much. That's the problem. You start slowing down. It makes everything, the way the track appears before you completely different. It's now 1.2 seconds.
Verne clunking the curbs, now coming into turn 16, fighting the car at the wheel, wasn't he? 1.4 seconds now the gap as he comes up towards 19. Van Dorn is in the stadium section, coming through 13. And the gap is 1.4 seconds at the moment. Extends a little bit more. We go on board with Van Dorn through the quick stuff.
See him through turn 18, any lift? A little bit, but obviously that's with that extra 13% of power that at 250 kilowatts.
Just love it.
It will feel a lot quicker.
Those two, that sequence might be one of my favourites in Formula E history. Across the line comes Verne at 22.6 for Jean-Eric Verne.
Second slower than Dan Ticktum.
Yeah, correct. And we'll see what Stoffel Van Dorn can do. Through the turn 22, out across the line, books himself a place up against Eduardo Mortara in the semi-final, and with a 21.2.
Just fractionally slower than Mortara.
Yeah, correct.
Really fractionally.
Yeah.
Well, mate, we've made it through. 120%, caution on the paddle, and clean tyres,
Evans out in the his driver area at the back in Jaguar, and well,
yeah, this is this bit you just want to be alone and there's a camera in your face.
Next up, quarterfinal 3, Robin Freins versus Antonio Felix da Costa. Freins 1-0 up in their own personal head-to-head battle so far this season. And these two, who were teammates at the Andretti team back in season 3, and got along very well as teammates as they come down towards the final couple of corners. Freins has been very up and down. This is the first time in the duels. It's only his second time in the duels in the last 7 races, whereas for the first 6 races he was in the duels every single time. So real drop-off for Freins and the Envision team, but a little bit more like it this time through, as da Costa comes out of the final corner, out across the line, down towards turn 1, Techeetah versus Envision, and we've got split screen.
Yeah, da Costa gets a bit further than Jean-Eric Verne did, his teammate. Again, I think da Costa missed the apex a little bit in turn 3.
He's 100th quicker than Freins through the first sector, through the first sequence of corners. Freins, though, gains now almost a 10th.
Again, just listen to the playing with the throttle not fully off, not really braking, just floating as much speed as possible. Is that close enough for you? 1100s?
Looks as though da Costa's gained a bit of ground in that stadium section. Now coming out into the left-hander of 16, and he has indeed a 1/10 of a second ahead now of Freins. Through the quick stuff.
Oh, bit of oversteer from da Costa. He's turning left in the right-hander, just to try and keep the car pointed as straight as possible.
He's now got over 2/10 on Robin Freins. One more corner to go.
Yeah, one big braking zone. You've got to get this right.
da Costa 2/10 ahead of Freins at the moment. Again, the car moving about so much underneath Robin Freins, but this is going to be da Costa first across the line. And he is through into the semi-finals at 20.9. So that lap from Freins is actually quicker than the drivers that advanced through, than Van Dorn and Mortara.
A tough duel.
So a 21.194 for Freins. That has him currently in 5th position on the grid. But one more duel to come. Lucas Degrassi versus Jake Dennis for a place in the semi-final. 1 each. And both from the last 2 races. This is the 3rd race in a row where they've faced each other in the duels. And this was a difficult one to call, because Dennis was flying in group qualifying.
Yeah, they're both on form, aren't they? I mean, the only possible thing you could say about Dennis right now, the car's going to handle it. We said a bit differently in the dual stages with that extra power. But he Both these drivers absolutely driving so well right now.
Lucas Degrassi. Has he got a bit of
tape on the left side, just flapping around?
Yeah.
Did he catch a bit of advertising, I wonder?
Yeah, interesting. Anyway, he's coming across the line now to start his flying lap. Degrassi first on track. Dennis will be chasing him.
It's good through there.
Very neat and tidy from Degrassi.
It always is with him, isn't he? He's got that lovely style. As has Jake Dennis, actually. Some are more ragged. The Robin Franks is always worth the price of admission because he's always over the limit.
Dennis through the first couple of corners, and Degrassi is up, but only by 100th of a second. He was in a pretty chirpy mood this morning, Lucas Degrassi, when I
wasn't he?
Had a little chat with him in the Venturi garage. He's now coming into 13, and he's managed to extend his advantage over Dennis to 500ths or so. Degrassi out of the stadium, Dennis into the stadium. That was tremendous, wasn't it?
The height of the wall, they wouldn't have seen it, but Dennis up a 10th up now.
So Dennis has found some time. Degrassi into 19. Now coming down to the final, to the penultimate corner at turn 20.
It's double apex, tricky corner.
Still over a 10th of a second, Dennis's advantage over Degrassi. But how is Dennis going to perform through the quick stuff? Onto the brakes at the final corner for the Brazilian. The gap grows a little more. It's over 2/10 to Degrassi. Degrassi does 1 minute 21.2. And Dennis has now got over 3/10. Just needs a neat and tidy final corner. Big jump on the bump.
I haven't seen anybody hit that before.
No.
The back wheel's right off the ground. Luckily, it was before the braking zone.
Dennis comes through and is into the semi-finals. Degrassi does a 21.209, but it's Jake Dennis who advances through to the semi-finals again. Such good form at the moment, Jake Dennis. That is, what is that? Is that 3? Oh no, because he didn't make it through to the semis yesterday, did he? I thought he did, but he lost out.
I think Jake and the Avalanche Andretti guys, they've really improved the performance of the car. Watch the back of the car as he hits that right off the ground. And it looks like he was maybe a half of a foot over more to the right than normal. There you go. Go and see his chiropractor after that one. All on board, here we go. Just listen. Ouch. And that noise you heard, that was right where Jake Dennis sits with the small of his back hitting the ground.
Roger Griffiths in there. David Beckman in there as well, the reserve driver for the Andretti team. As Dennis advances into the semi-finals. This is where we're at. Mortara beat Tictum, Van Dorn beat Verne, De Costa beat France, Dennis beat Degrassi, and those are the 4 drivers that will face off in the semi-finals. One Mercedes EQ powered car will be into the final, but which one will it be? The Mercedes or the Venturi? And they'll be up against either Dennis or De Costa in the final and the battle for pole. So, Van Dorn versus Mortara next up in the duels, and the semi-finals will be coming up in about 5 minutes time. Van Dorn already in the car, ready to go.
Which is saying something in this heat that he's getting in that early, because it is hot and humid.
Yeah, it certainly is. 12 duels won this season for Stoffel Van Dorn, 10 lost, 6th time in the semi-finals. He's taken 7 poles, but that's over his career, not this season. Only 2 poles this season for Stoffel Van Dorn, whereas Eduardo Mortara has won 15 duels and lost just 5. Remarkable strike ratio for Mortara. 2 poles, both coming this season in Berlin. Before the semi-finals there's going to get underway, let's check in with Nicky. So Byrne eliminated, 8th on the grid.
New father, John-Eric Byrne. Yeah, cool to see.
And the cars just being pushed back into the garages on the weighbridge. You see Freitz making his way down on the left-hand side. And he will be starting in 5th position. And this is on board with Antonio Felix da Costa, and this is the end of his fastest lap in the quarterfinals as he comes down now towards the right-hander and then down towards turn 22.
So the first of the semi-finals, Van Dorn Mortara, that's got team championship implications.
Yeah.
And that will not be lost on the drivers. See Antonio Felix da Costa just a little bit wide there.
DS Techeetah are not really in the fight for the win. They are close to Venturi, but with the Venturis qualifying so well, I think it'll be tough for DS Techeetah to overhaul them, but wait and see.
You never know.
No, exactly, that's the thing. You never know anything really in Formula E. That's my motto anyway.
It's catchy.
So, a few minutes away from the semi-finals getting underway here in Seoul. The final race day of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. The 8th season of the all-electric single-seater series. And the last race for Mercedes. Thank you to Mercedes is the message on Stoffel van Dorn's helmet. The semi-finals getting underway in 2 minutes' time. Maserati joining next year. McLaren joining next year. And McLaren actually fundamentally taking over this Mercedes EQ team. So expect to see a lot of these, basically everyone but the drivers.
Yeah, I mean, both drivers leaving. Nissan powertrain with the McLaren, so that'll be interesting.
So Stephen Lane will be heading over there. I think Ian James is heading over to McLaren as well after a long time with Mercedes. I can't remember how long he said.
He's been there a long time. He was involved in the production car side of things for a long time.
And that's the De Vries side of the garage, so that's why they are mostly back in the debrief room already. As Van Dorn gets ready to pull out and onto the circuit. Right, this is where we're at. Semi-final time. Stoffel van Dorn versus Eduardo Mortara. One Mercedes EQ powertrain will be through to the final. And then Jake Dennis versus Antonio Felix da Costa. One of those two will be into the final also. The battle for 3 World Championship points. First up though, it is going to be this really interesting quarterfinal for the Teams Championship. Stoffel van Dorn for Mercedes EQ, Eduardo Mortara for Rocket Venturi Racing. Van Dorn going for 2 titles.
I'm fast because I'm in the zone, I'm focused and I'm talented.
Being the one taking a little bit more risk than the others and also the one doing the less mistakes.
Those are the 2 drivers then about to fight it out for a front row grid slot for the Seoul E-Prix later on this afternoon. Gets underway in 3.5 hours time. Then Mortara will wait for 10 seconds and then be sent out onto the circuit. But it's big for if Mercedes EQ can win the title, it'll be back-to-back teams titles for Mercedes. If Venturi win it, it'll be their first ever Formula E championship in any form, drivers or teams.
And Venturi being the customer Mercedes EQ team, it's a customer powertrain. I think that shows that the way formally the regulations are done, it really helps the customer teams. It's not a massive disadvantage, and yeah, that's it's very unusual to see that. But I'm sure they're not thinking about that right now.
Well,
Stoffel van Dorn just
maybe Venturi are a little bit.
Yeah, just going easily on the tyres.
Taking it nice and steady. No prep laps here, it's just out lap and then push straight away in the semi-finals.
Yeah, and again, you see Edo Mortara doing the same thing, not putting any energy in the tyres because that heats up the tyre itself, which brings the pressure up as well.
And both of these drivers are in qualifying Group A, so their tyres will be sort of similar conditions also. And Mortara was quicker than Van Dorn in the qualifying groups, wasn't he? And in the quarterfinals, Mortara was also quicker than Van Dorn. So just evidence suggests that Mortara is the favourite here, but barely by anything. Here we go then. Stoffel Van Dorn into turn one, looking for his third pole position of the season. In fact, so is Mortara. They're so evenly matched, these two. As Van Dorn swings it down towards turn four, Mortara starts his lap now into the right-hander of turn one. Little flick out from the rear as he then gets on the power. Who's it going to be the advantage? 600's up for Mortara after the first few corners.
You've got to say the Mercedes turns in ever so well. Stoffel Van Dorn, but the advantage right now with Mortara, but now they're equal. Oh, thousands of seconds.
Wow, a thousandth between Van Dorn and Mortara. Through the stadium comes Van Dorn.
Oh, it was lovely from Van Dorn through there. Let's see if that pays dividends for him. He used the curb to help turn the car in turn 13.
600ths is the advantage now for Mortara, who's making his way out of the stadium. Into turn 16. Gap grows to just over a tenth.
Look how close Mortara gets to the walls.
Every time, it's just ridiculous. Paper close. Van Dorn down towards turn 22. Mortara's gap now is almost 0.2 of a second. This is a great lapping coming from Eduardo Mortara. Van Dorn into the final corner of 22. He's closed the gap a little bit. Comes across the line. The benchmark is a 21.0. But here comes Eduardo Mortara. The gap is almost 0.2. Is Mortara through to the final? He is. Mortara into the final. Great news for the Venturi team in their championship fight.
And that's the quickest lap we've seen in the duels today.
20.913. 7 thousandths quicker than Da Costa managed. And for Van Dorn, a 21.069 is a very quick lap time, quicker than any of the losers in the quarterfinals. Semi-final number 2, Jake Dennis versus Antonio Felix da Costa. Avalanche Andretti versus Diaz-Techeetah. They have Dennis has the 1-0 lead in their own personal duels over the course of the season so far. And we'll see what happens on this occasion. A place on the front row of the grid awaits. Dennis was 5th on the grid yesterday and then went on to finish 4th. But very different weather conditions yesterday. Well, I say that, we don't know what the weather's going to be like when it does rain later on.
But at this point yesterday it was raining heavily.
Yeah. On board with Da Costa.
You can see he's not braking hard, he's not trying to, again, put temperature through the tyre, he's just trying to keep everything nice and cool to start this lap.
Mortara behind, just returning to the pit lane after the completion of his duel. As Thomas Chevauchet, team principal of Diaz-Techeetah, and Roger Griffiths, the team principal of Avalanche Andretti, watch their drivers battle in the semi-finals. Dennis quicker through turns 1 to 3 by 600ths of a second. Da Costa is the quicker of the two in their quarterfinals. Closes the gap in a little. Da Costa looks fractionally ahead, but only by 0.02 of a second. This is a really close one.
Absolutely right, no real mistakes for either driver so far.
Into the left-hander of 16. Da Costa extends again, but only by 400. This is so close.
Yeah, Dennis had a snap of oversteer through turn 16 on the exit.
Both right up to the wall, and Da Costa's building his advantage a little more. A 10th up now. Through turn 20, one more corner to go.
Good stuff from Da Costa, because Dennis is making no mistakes here.
Into the final corner at turn 22, Da Costa gets it hooked up. Drives towards the line, it's going to be a close one. But it's Da Costa Da Costa is into the final to face Eduardo Mortara, a 1 minute 20.925.
Guess what? It's for you.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, super lap.
It really was. That was a cracking duel. Just no quarter given. Each driver won just over a tenth of a second between them.
The Jake Dennis car not making it through, but he will be third on the grid. His lap time was quicker than Stoffel van Doorn's, so it'll be third on the grid for Jake Dennis, fourth for Stoffel van Doorn. And if the race finished how it started, Van Doorn would win the championship. But we've got a long way to go. That's just where we will start. Van Doorn out of the car.
He's got himself up into those front rows where it's a bit more civilized at the start normally.
So Mortara through to the final. Again, that is his 6th final appearance of the season, the most of anyone. He doesn't have the best qualifying average of anyone this season. That actually is Da Costa's. But nobody has been on the front row of the grid more times this season than Eduardo Mortara. It'll be 6 times on the front row this year. The nearest is Dennis, actually, who's had 4 front rows. Van Doorn has had 4 front rows. Mortara hadn't had a pole position before this year, before Berlin, and then he took 2 in 2 days. So Mortara, Van Doorn, Da Costa and Dennis through to the semis, but Mortara beating Van Doorn and advancing through to the final. Da Costa beating Jake Dennis, and he will join the Italian-Swiss racer in the final and the battle for 3 points, which should be very useful for the Rocket Venturi team. Stoffel van Doorn making his way back down to the garage. 5 minutes until the final gets underway, so let's check in with Nicky. Prior to this, 13th was his best qualifying result. Dan Ticktum at the race yesterday in Seoul. Prior to that, it had been 14th in Monaco. So good stuff from Dan Ticktum. The conveyor belt continues with Nicky. Who's next? Took his first Formula E victory in the rain in Season 5, the first wet race in Formula E.
In Paris.
In Paris.
Remember how slippery it was, then that one straight under the tree, just wheel spinning.
And Oliver Rowland obliterated Alexander Sims into the barriers.
That's right.
And so, actually, we were talking about that. I was talking about that the other day with Rowland, and he was saying, I wouldn't have been surprised if Sims got whiplash from that crash, because he'd spun him like 360 degrees or like 720 degrees before he even hit the barriers. Anyway, that was then. This is now. Final in a moment. There's a look at the Seoul E-Prix circuit here in the Jamshil Sports Complex. We've got the final coming up in a moment, DaCosta versus Mortara, and this is the fake final, let's call it, the semi-final run from DaCosta on the left and Eduardo Mortara on the right. Dario Franchitti.
Let's see if we can actually see any difference between them, because, oh, is it 1200ths of a second difference?
Yeah.
That might be quite difficult to see. Very similar lines so far. You notice there's not a lot of sideways action. They're keeping the cars as straight as they possibly can. Just working the steering, just kind of catching those small snaps of oversteer. The further they go around the lap, the more grip they're going to start losing as the tyres start to overheat. Here they both go airborne through turn 15, not even a hint of lifting though. They're going to go through 16, 17, 18, let's see if either of them lifts. Not even thinking about it. Heavily on the brakes. The wall comes out to meet you out of 19.
If you'd have told me these were the same onboards on both sides, I'd have believed you.
Yeah, listen to the throttle application. They're almost identical. It's incredible.
Yeah.
See who breaks the latest into 22. Identical again, funnily enough. And there we go. This is going to be close.
That was just like, it's not like someone gained a bit there, then lost a bit here, or it was just...
Not like in the wet yesterday.
Yeah.
But if you're one of the drivers, you're thinking to yourself, well, where can I find... Not like a couple of tens, you're like, where can I find a couple of hundredths of a second here? This lap's going to have to be perfection from both these drivers to get pole position.
So, just the final to come here in qualifying, the final qualifying session for this new excellent duels format that Formula E have introduced this year. Mortara and DaCosta facing off in the final. Van Dorn and Dennis will be on the second row of the grid, but the battle for pole position is between Antonio Felix DaCosta for the DS Techeetah team and Eduardo Mortara for the Rocket Venturi Racing team. They've faced each other 3 times this season. DaCosta leads it 2-1.
So I put a lot of work, a lot of hours into these poly laps. It's a great feeling when we smash one out, so let's go.
I'm fast because I'm the one doing the least mistakes.
Simple as that. Antonio Felix DaCosta at the head of the queue, leaves the pit lane now and starts his duel in the final. He has had a pole position so far this season, DaCosta. He started from pole on 2 occasions. He took pole in Marrakesh and then inherited pole in New York City. But according to the statistics, my statistics, that is only counting as 1 pole position, even though he started from pole twice. So for those of you who are interested in that stuff, that's how it works.
He earned 1 pole, would that be the way to say it?
Yeah. He got points for 1 pole. Because he didn't get points for the other pole either. And they still went to Nick Cassidy, wasn't it, in New York City? But here we go. DaCosta out in front.
Just working, trying to get both drivers, trying to get the tire temperatures into the window when they need it towards the end of the lap, getting the brakes working, getting the front and the rear into the window at the same time. That's one of the biggest challenges, actually.
If DaCosta takes pole, Evans will start 13th on the grid. If Mortara takes pole, Evans will start 14th on the grid, for whatever that's worth. Not much, but just a note.
That's going to make a difficult afternoon for Mitch, isn't it? He's going to have to pull a heck of a race out of the bag to bring the World Championship to Jaguar TCS Racing by himself.
A pole position here for Mortara would mean that the 31-point lead that Mercedes EQ have at the top of the championship would come down to 28 points in the team's championship, which is it's a doable gap to overhaul. So
47 points available right now in the team's championship. He goes DaCosta on the brakes into 1.
The DS Techeetah begins his flying lap.
Such a late turning into 1. He gets really good response. You're not hearing the tyres chirping, so that's a good sign.
7 pole positions in his Formula E career, has only won one race. Da Costa not starting in first position on the grid, and there is only 100th between them all. Looks as though Da Costa was a little slidey entering the stadium. Mortara extends his gap to about 400ths of a second.
Look, a bit of understeer through turn 10 for Da Costa.
Mortara's back end turning around. There's 4,000ths between them. It's as tight as it was in the fake final. Neat and tidy from Da Costa through 16.
Yeah, lovely there. Good balance of the car. Back end not stepping out.
Mortara through 16 as well. He had to fight it a little more.
Thousandths of a second.
It's come down by 3,000ths to just 1,000th between Da Costa and Mortara. What a fight this is for pole position. Da Costa through turn 19. We're on board with the Portuguese. It's a huge 200th now in Da Costa's advantage.
Last braking zone.
Gets it in, comes towards the line. He's got half a tenth on Mortara now. Sets the benchmark of a 21.078. Oh, Mortara's lost a couple of tenths in the penultimate corner. And so, across the line, it is the Degrassi cheetah of Antonio Felix Da Costa, who takes pole position for Seoul.
Yeah! Pole position!
Formula career. Disappointment for Venturi, but still front row of the grid for Eduardo Mortara, and a chance to try and close in on Mercedes EQ in the team's championship. But a great lap from Da Costa.
Just no mistakes.
No.
Millimetre perfect. To do that, just with that pressure, he knew how small the advantage, how the difference was between him and Edu Mortara.
It'll be the third time this season that Da Costa will start from the front of the grid. The Portuguese driver, as Van Dorn does fist bumps in the garage. Da Costa has won one race this year. He finished. He won the second race in New York City. He finished second when he started on pole in Marrakesh. And Degrassi cheetah aren't far behind Venturi either for second in the team's championship. So that's another interesting fight, because the gap.
28 points now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're closer than they were, Jack.
That's a fact.
That is a fact, and again, I've said it before, the team's championship is the one that pays the prize money. You can see all the reaction in the Mercedes EQ garage. Just the fact that Mitch Evans didn't get those 3 points.
It's actually 13 points between Venturi and Degrassi cheetah, because the gap's come down there.
Absolutely right.
So it's 13 points now. Degrassi cheetah behind Venturi. Venturi are only 31 points behind Mercedes EQ. It's very, very tight up there.
Yeah.
Nigel Beresford on the left, James Rossiter on the right, in the sort of island workstation area.
Nigel Beresford, he's been there, seen it, done it, worked for Roger Penske for a long time in IndyCar. And he's a calming influence in that team, I would say.
Did you ever work with Nigel Beresford?
I did not. I did not. I raced against Nigel's when some of the times he was at Penske. You see Da Costa standing on the scales. We'll tell how much he had for dinner last night. I bet he didn't have pepperoni pizza for dinner.
And so Da Costa on pole. We'll hear from him in a few moments' time. He will be on the front of the grid with Mortara alongside him. Dennis third, Van Dorn fourth. Freitz will be fifth. Degrassi will be sixth. Ticktum will be seventh. Jean-Eric Verne will be eighth. So that De Vries is quite a long way back, isn't he? He's going to be 12th on the grid, 12th or 13th on the grid for Nick De Vries. So it could all close in the championship. It could really sort of concertina up to the top of the standings as the teams get tucked into some lunch.
Back to work, no rest. You can tell when Stoffel's a little stressed or annoyed because he frowns.
Rabbit food, says Van Dorn. That's due to the, I presume, the nutritional nature of what he's got to eat rather than the quality of the catering.
I imagine so. It's not bad.
Yeah.
There's our pole position winner.
Told you. I told you.
Well, sounds like he was feeling confident going into this qualifying session, Da Costa.
Woo! Okay.
And it was a really strong lap to secure pole position.
Multiple laps having to do that.
Well, that's what I love about this qualifying format, is you've got to do 5 good laps if you want to take pole.
Yeah, I love this qualifying format. It's been so good, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, 4 good laps if you want to take pole.
Come on. You. I smelled it this morning. You saw me looking at it.
Check whatever that fist bump was on Instagram later. There's Chevauche. Mr. Costa is basically making the trek to Nicky. That's where he's walking to at the moment.
And it's a long old walk.
Yeah.
The weighbridge is at the far end of pit lane. Nicky's at the other.
This is how the grid will line up for round 16, the final round of the season. Alexander Sims will be 22nd, Sasha Fenestraz 21st, Oliver Turvey 20th, Sebastian Buemi 19th. Pole sitter yesterday, Oliver Rowland only down in 18th on the grid. Very difficult day for the Porsches, 15th and 17th for Verline and Lotterer. Then you have Nick Cassidy back in 14th place. Mitch Evans, the championship fighter, could only manage 13th on the grid. Oliver Askew out qualifying Nick De Vries into the top 10, and it's Sergio Sedecamera for the Dragon Penske Autosport team, who will just be behind Max Gunter. Jean-Eric Verne only 8th after making a mistake at turn 1. Dan Ticktum has his and Neo's best qualifying performance of the season with 7th place. Lucas Degrassi is 6th. Robin Fry is very happy with 5th, but is hoping for rain. Stoffel Van Dorn, champion-elect, will start 4th on the grid. If he finishes there, he wins the title. Jake Dennis is 3rd on the grid for Avalanche Andretti. Eduardo Mortara is 2nd, and Da Costa is on pole. After a stellar lap, once again, from the Season 6 Formula champion. Not in the title fight this year for the drivers' standings, and not quite able to catch Mercedes EQ in the team's championship either, but 2nd is up for grabs.
Good one, mate. Thank you so much. Strong one. I told you I smelled it.
Leo Thomas, the man in the glasses there with having the little hug.
One day less and I would have had another time.
So a great performance from Da Costa, he's on pole.
Yes.
So Antonio Felix Da Costa will start on pole position in exactly 3 hours' time. Make sure you come and join us for the season finale of the Formula World Championship. And as you can see, Da Costa elated with that. And we will hear from the pole sitter. Another pole position for the DS Techeetah driver. He's with Nicky.
8th career pole position at the 100th Formula E race. What a way to do it.
I don't know, I seem to always get along with these milestones. Like, I won the first ever race for Gen 2. Now I'm on pole for the last one. I don't know, things just come together. But nah, honestly, we had some struggles yesterday, and we did some out-of-the-box changes for today, and I'm glad it worked out with the team. You know, we told ourselves last night we didn't want to come here today and just, you know, fill the grid. We wanted to change something, take some risks to try and close the year on a good note. And at the moment, it's looking good. Obviously now, 40 laps of racing ahead of us. That's the hard bit. So yeah, we'll see.
And a fairly competitive grid behind you as well. Obviously, you could see how much it means to you and the team going and enjoying some celebrations with them on the way.
Yeah, I mean, we've been through a lot together lately. Obviously, the last 3 years did a championship together, some remarkable wins like Monaco, and yeah, it's an emotional day for us today.
Well, another one for the trophy cabinet, Marco Ferroni, to present you with the Julius Baer pole position trophy. Huge congratulations to Antonio Felix Da Costa.
So Da Costa on pole, 3 points as well, which closes him in a little bit on his teammate Jean-Eric Verne and on Lucas Degrassi, who's in 5th place in the drivers' standings. But it's Da Costa who will start at the front for DS Techeetah. See whether he can convert it into the race victory. An interesting point there that he said, he bookending pole positions in the Gen 2 car. It's on pole position in Diriyah in the first ever Gen 2 car race at the start of season 5 when he was in a BMW.
Maximum performance out of the car, and I'm pretty happy and pretty pleased of for the sessions. So let's see now in the race. Hopefully we can have finally a good result. Ciao.
There we go. Don't need to send him to Nicky now, do we? Now that he's done the social media stuff, but we will hear from him in a while.
Well, not so much, no?
In the first 2 sectors, yeah, super close.
So Eduardo Mortara will start on the front row of the grid and looking for a good result finally, because
You tell him that. I'm going to get rid of his helmet.
Eddie Mortara, so close there. I think there was about 1,000th of a second between you at one point, and then the third sector, Da Costa just got the better of you.
Yeah, we seem to struggle quite a lot with the tires, especially in the last sector. Yeah, that final round was extremely difficult for me. I tried to extract the maximum performance out of the car. There was nothing really so much more in it, but anyway, congrats to him, to Antonio, and now there's a pretty long race, to go, and hopefully we can have a good one.
And the fight's very much on, just 13 points between the two teams in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try. I'll try to do my best, and then we will see at the end who comes in front. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Enjoy the last race of the season, Eduardo Mortara. Qualifying is always key, but especially when you're championship leader, Stoffel van Dorn. Starting from P4, what do you make of that?
I think it was a decent session for me, to be honest. You know, we had pace in practice, so I knew I could kind of convert that into a good result. But it's so tight out there, so close, and managed to get through the quarterfinals. Didn't quite manage to beat Edo on one lap in the semis, but I think we're P4 or something on the grid. So yeah, it's still a good starting position, and I can have a good race from there.
Exactly. I mean, ultimately, I'm sure you were going for pole position, but does it really matter when Mitch Evans is right back down there in P13, 14?
Well, I was kind of hoping I could go for pole position because, you know, in some way, you know, the pressure was a little bit on Mitch to, you know, to make it into the duels and then to qualify the car on pole. So yeah, as soon as I knew he wasn't there, I could kind of focus on myself and just execute some good laps. But you know, I was just missing a little bit.
Well, thanks very much, Stoffel van Dorn. Good luck for the race.